Hello everyone, welcome back to Justice for All. I am Aaron Justice. Tonight, the guys over at News Nation just dropped a new video about an hour ago with a gentleman by the name of Michael Franzese. And they talk about one of the major questions I had when all of this Epstein stuff was going on back a few years ago when he in jail. This guy apparently has spent time in that cell. He was a part of the Colombo crime family back in the 1980s and did time in that exact cell. What he claims is something I've always wondered, and what you and probably millions of others have wondered. How exactly did he do this? Epstein. Yeah, it just says, oh, he fashioned this noose out of bed sheets, and that's kind of it. But this guy's claim is that there's no way that he could have done that. The beds aren't tall enough, and he's a big guy, and there's just nothing hanging from the ceiling. There isn't an apparatus there for him to actually attach the bed sheets to. And I've always wondered about the bed sheets as well. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen. I'm just saying, how would you fashion those in such a way that you could make that execution on your own and have it be small enough and tight enough to actually do that? I'm not an expert on the subject, obviously, but I did find this interview to be very interesting. So short watch, so let's go ahead and check that out. Michael Franzese on News Nation.
This is interesting. With intimate knowledge of the very jail cell Epstein died in. Michael Franzese was a capo for the Colombo crime family in the 1980s. He served time in the exact cell where Epstein was later held. Michael, welcome back to the program. Tell us about that cell, and what do you make of these revelations that there is a minute missing from the surveillance video, Michael?
I spent 7 months on that tier and in those cells. And the first thing I have to say, there's just no way you are able to commit suicide. There's just no way to hang yourself. There's nothing from the ceiling. There's nothing from the bed. You'd have to be a midget and work really hard to try to hang yourself. And I don't think you can accomplish it at that point. As far as the cameras being off, I haven't experienced that. I did 8 years in prison. I haven't experienced cameras being broken in the perfect storm of correctional officers not walking those cells. They walk in and look in on you all the time. Sometimes it's embarrassing to go to the toilet because they're walking past you and looking in the cell constantly. I've said this from day one. I do not believe it was suicide. I can't talk about what happened to him, but I don't believe it was a suicide because you just couldn't physically do it. It would be almost impossible to do it.
Michael, when you look at the video, though, it must be interesting because the area, we all look at this and it just looks like a prison, but this must look very familiar to you.
Absolutely. Very familiar. On the fact that a minute is missing, look, everything around this guy, I just did a very deep dive into him, which I'll be releasing on my platform in the next several days. Look, there's no way that this person operated alone. Alan Dershowitz recently said that he saw the client list. But because he's an attorney, he can't reveal what he saw. But he said he saw the client list. He's demanding that it be released. To think that there's no flight logs, that there's no client list, that the thousands of recordings that they had, because I found out for sure that he had cameras on every bedroom, recording everything, and all of a sudden all of it is gone. None of this makes sense. And look, the only reason it's important, it's not that anybody's trying to say, come on, this guy was a creep, and there was young women involved in this. Young girls were trafficked and abused. I have 5 daughters and granddaughters, and I just don't like it. Anybody involved should be held accountable. I recently interviewed Paul Hutchinson, a major figure in the Sound of Freedom. He was one of the ones that went to rescue, I think, 51 or 52 of these young girls and young boys that were being exploited and trafficked. This has got to stop. If these people are not held accountable, it's just going to continue. And unfortunately, it seems like it's people with power and money. It seems that from what my investigation, that this Les Wexner was the first one that Epstein was able to bribe And there's a lot of stuff here that needs to come out, and it's really shameful if it doesn't. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But as far as the jail cell,
We only
no
have,
way.
I want to go back to the jail cell because you lived in that jail cell. And just real quick, again, tell me, would you have the privacy in that jail cell to take your own life?
Not only would you not have the privacy, I don't understand how you would be able to do it. You have to hang yourself from something. There's nothing on the ceiling that you can hang a bed sheet on. The bed is not that high. You have to try to lay down on the floor in some way because Jeffrey Epstein was a fairly big guy. You'd have to be a midget to even try to hang yourself. So it's not a question of not only are there cameras on, are the COs walking the tier constantly, especially from what I understand, Jeffrey Epstein was on suicide watch for a while. They want you very closely. Trust me on that. So I just can't buy it. I cannot buy it. I'm sorry. And I have no horse in this race other than my experience and the fact that I just couldn't see it happening.
Yeah. Yeah, we appreciate you coming on tonight, Michael. We appreciate your perspective, especially as someone who's been in that exact cell. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
There you have it, folks. The man who has supposedly been there saying there's just no way he could have done this. So what do you guys think? Have you guys been asking this question like me and so many other people have been asking, like, how exactly did this happen? How did this unfold? And how, if he was on suicide watch and there were guards going by all the time, how was this not, how did he get past it? There's just so many loose and open-ended questions here that I'm really afraid we're never going to get a full answer to. But sound off down in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. Did you guys buy the story that he did the deed himself, or do you think there's conspiracy and a cover-up? And how do you think that unfolded? Write down in the comments and let me know. And as always, thank you for watching. We'll be back with more coverage tomorrow.